All right, so let's do this. What I'd like to do tonight is the following. Answer any questions you had from Monday or Wednesday. So if there's anything that's confusing or burning a hole in your brain, now's the time to let me know, and we'll make sure that we clear that up for you. While you're thinking that through, let me outline what else we're going to do tonight. We are going to spend a smidge of time on scripts, and start with a video with my friend Jeff Glover, and then talk a little bit about script work, and we're going to move through the concept of building your database. We talked about what to do with your database, but now we're going to decide to build a database specifically for real estate. Then you're going to go off into some breakout rooms to just kind of talk through ideas and strategies to build that database. Then we're going to come back and clear that and dive right into source of business. And so that's kind of how the night will go. We will be out by 6, I promise you, if not 5:58, because I'm already starving. I don't know about the rest of you. I'd say most of the rest of you are at home, so you can just excuse yourself and go to the fridge, which seems woefully unfair to me. But that's the way life goes sometimes, right? I'll just keep sipping my water and get thinner and thinner and thinner as I teach. You can all be jealous. All right, guys, so let's dive in with our first video of the evening. This is Jeff Glover talking through scripts.
Hi, I'm Jeff Glover, and I'm going to tell you the top 5 things that you need to know about using scripts. Step 1, you're going to need to get your scripts from a top agent at the office, your team leader, a MAPS coach, or of course Keller Williams University. Step 2, we're going to need to do a total transformation of, instead of talking and telling, of asking questions. Selling isn't telling, selling is asking a series of questions that leads to desired response. So instead of talking so much, we need to get in the habit of asking questions. And asking questions gives us control of the conversation. Control of the conversation gives us our ultimate outcome, which is an appointment set or closing. Step 3, we need to listen with good intentions. Well, what I mean by that is we need to listen to their answers instead of just listening to them talk and asking another question that comes to mind. For example, instead of asking a seller where they're moving to and then going on to the next question, how soon would you like to be there? Ask them, where are you moving to? And when they give you a response, ask them, what takes you there? Step 4 in becoming better at scripts is we need to learn to mimic, mirror, and match the prospect. What I mean by that is we have to listen to their tone of voice. We have to speed up or slow down based on how fast the prospect is talking. That means when they respond and say, we're moving to Toledo, oh, Toledo, that's exciting. What takes you there? 93% of communication is body language and tonality. And that means only 7% are the words that we say or the questions that we ask. Step 5, we need to take these 5 points and practice them daily. If you think of NFL teams, they practice 50, 60 hours on the practice field for a 1-hour game. Our game is our presentations and our appointments, and we need to practice daily everything that we've learned every single day before we meet with our clients. When it comes to scripts, my biggest aha is that everybody has their own scripts. We're pre-programmed to have scripts, and we're talking and asking questions that are scripted. However, what we found is that most of our own scripts are no good. And so we have to learn the right scripts, the right questions to maintain control of the conversation. Thanks for watching KW Connect. Make it a great day.
He's so cheery, isn't he? My goodness. Gotta love that guy. All right, well, thank you, Jeff. So what did you hear? What did you hear in that 2 minutes? It was kind of packed full of really good stuff.
Mirror, mimic, mirror, and match.
So mirror and match, yeah, absolutely. Mirror and matching is massively important. We're going to cycle back to that in a second. What else? Go ahead, Seth.
Less is more in terms of how much talking you're doing. It makes more sense to have a list of questions that you ask, a set list of questions that you ask everyone you're meeting with, and let them drive where the conversation is going to go.
Yeah, that is so 112% true, right? It's fascinating to me. One of the things that I learned the hard way is that when you have a one-on-one meeting with somebody, the person who talks the most feels it went the best. And so if that's you, right? If you talked the most, well, that means you feel like it went the best. The problem is that the person sitting across from you, the person who, is you're hoping to have hire you, then didn't think it went the best. So that becomes problematic, right? Less is definitely more. I'd rather you ask a powerful question and then staple your lips shut for a little while and aggressively listen, right? What's that saying? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion.
There's another one I got from my past career, and it's you're not listening to anything if you're always talking.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. What was your past career? I'm curious.
I was in financial services.
Oh, nice.
In the hedge fund space.
Excellent. What else we got? Margaret?
Practice, practice, practice.
Oh, yeah, that is so key, right? So key. And I'll tell you what, it's one of the things that we, as real estate professionals, oftentimes discount, right? We think we learn something once and then just go and practice real estate without actually practicing before the practice, right? And if you think about other industries, right, there is a level of practice that happens. I love that NFL analogy. Like they practice all week long for an hour-long game. That means that hour-long game, that's your listing consultation. How much did you practice the week before for that? If you ever go and see like a show on Broadway, like if we ever get to go see a show on Broadway ever again, June 1st, 2021, that's when it's pushed to at this point. If there's any money left anywhere to actually produce anything in any of those theaters, and all of the actors and stagehands and musicians haven't gone elsewhere to actually find work. So if we ever get to see a show in a Broadway theater ever again, just remember that they don't rehearse and then open the show and never rehearse again. They do 8 shows a week and then they have rehearsal calls, right? They have to rehearse with some of the understudies to make sure the understudies stay fresh. Sometimes they work new information or new blocking or new whatever into the show after it opens, and they have to kind of work that through. So there's always that ongoing practice. And what you'll find is that if you will commit to a schedule of practice before you commit to a schedule of anything else, you will be so much better at what it is you do when you are called upon to actually do it. Setting a practice schedule does not make you a bad real estate agent. It doesn't make you new. It doesn't make you any of the things that sometimes we fill our head with. It actually makes you a smart business owner, in my opinion. Because that consistency in practice will just simply put you ahead. There's a great video. I'll see if I can find it and play it for you on Monday. It's a video of Kobe Bryant, and what Kobe Bryant talks about in that, or somebody else says this about Kobe Bryant, that they went to go play whoever Kobe Bryant played for. I don't remember who that was. I'm not a big sports analogy guy, so that's why I like when Jeff Glover makes the sports analogies and I can just repeat them. So there was some other basketball guy talking about going to wherever it is Kobe Bryant played. Was it the Lakers? Was it LA Lakers? Okay. So going to play the Lakers and arriving early and hitting the gym for like a warm up and a workout. And Kobe was there when he started. He was there through the whole time that this guy worked out. And he was there when this guy finally said, okay, well, we have a game in like 2 hours. I'm going to go and, chill out and shower and get ready and do everything else. And the whole idea was that Kobe Bryant was going to out practice anyone and everyone. In his mind, his thought was, you know what, if I out practice everybody by an hour every time we play a game, cumulatively, at some point, I will be untouchable. Because if I out-practice somebody 1 hour, and then I out-practice the next guy another hour, and I out-practice another hour, eventually I'm setting myself apart from the entire industry because I'm always out-practicing regardless who's here. And that cumulative effect, now whether he was naturally gifted and or he took those natural gifts and just worked harder than everybody else, right, it is not really relevant, because natural talent only gets you so far, right? And so he successfully created, like any great champion would do, created a gap between him and the rest of the pack by out practicing, right? Will you do that? Will you out practice your competition? And by how much each day? You're going to out practice everybody by 20 minutes a day? Because here's what I can tell you. If you commit to 20 minutes a day of practicing your scripts and practicing what you need to do, you are out practicing nearly 100% of your competitors by that full 20 minutes a day. Because almost no one in our industry consistently practices what it is they do. Almost no one. So if you're kind of thinking, you know, how do I break out? How do I, you know, I'm entering a field where there's, you know, 1.1 million other real estate agents across the country. Well, that is true. How many of them practice daily? Is that one of the things that will push you to set yourself apart? What else? Cindy, hold on, you have to unmute yourself. I think you had something for us, Cindy, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, questions equal control, and it's so true.
Yeah, questions equal control. Who likes control? Any other control freaks on the call? Ah, I knew I saw my kindred spirits, my brethren. It's fascinating because I took a course a number of years ago. It was a consulting clinic, and it really should have been called a How to Maintain Control as You're Speaking clinic, because it was all about finding and asking powerful questions, and then knowing, once you've asked the question, how to allow someone else to answer that question, and for you to not kind of interrupt, to keep them on the path that you're looking to travel down anyway, right? Because when in script work, for example, when you say something, when you ask a question, you don't necessarily know what that person is going to answer. And so the skill comes into play into asking questions in such a way that does guide the client, does guide the person you're talking to down a predictable path. Again, which is not to say that you're manipulating them, right? Because all scripts are 100% focused on the client and for the client's benefit, right? They're not manipulative. Trust me, you can't make people do something that they don't want to do. You are simply not, none of us on this call are that powerful. And yet, via education and guidance, you can sometimes point people in the right direction to self-discover what it is they were going to get to anyway, but perhaps faster with the questions that you've asked them. We have an agent in the Stanford Market Center. Some of you may know him. Who knows Jeff Stella, right? Some of you know Jeff. And Jeff was a New York City police detective for most of his career. He is now since retired. And we were in between team leaders when Jeff got hired. And so I was the de facto team leader because we didn't have a team leader. So I sat in a room with Jeff and I hired Jeff Stella. And it was fascinating to, you know, I'm asking questions to help guide him through this consultation, hoping that where we get at the end is him recognizing that Keller Williams Realty is the place that he wants to grow his career. And I found myself all of a sudden talking way more than I normally do. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of interesting. I wonder why I'm experiencing more talking than normal. And I suddenly realized that the reason behind that was that Jeff, who was trained as a New York City police detective, he had skills, right? He had consultation skills. He had question asking skills. And very quickly in our conversation, he took over and started to ask me the questions. I don't think I've ever seen it more clearly, the battle for control via question asking and answering, than in that conversation between Jeff and I, right? So as soon as I recognized what was happening, I thought, oh, I don't think so, my friend. I think we're gonna turn this right back around. And so I started asking questions some more, right? But it was fascinating to watch, and I felt it. I felt the control shift as he took over the question asking. And so if you're having a conversation with someone who is skilled in that arena, right, it can be challenging. So I have just a real quick question, and I'm not sure if all of you are in gallery view. So if you can't see what's going on, maybe what I'll do is I'll just spotlight it for everyone. My question is, do we get a vote in how Christian's hair comes out?
Absolutely. We should have a vote.
So whoever is, there we go.
I like your dedication.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
It
Thank
is
you.
indeed.
That's my barb right there.
Oh,
Hello. We're glad to see you.
You should get a KW put in the side.
Yeah, that's right. Carve a KW in the back of his head. That would be awesome. All right, I'm muting you. All righty, remove spotlight. Okay. So whoever is taking care of Christian's hair today, you take good care of our friend, because he's got great hair, so don't screw it up. All righty. There we go. Sorry, just had to take a minute and make sure that everyone knew that Christian was getting his haircut.
Rick, I have a question from
Yes, ma'am.
the sales rally the other day, actually, but I mean, it kind of comes to, I guess, so it said that we're at about 500 sales people now, right?
Yes, 500 real estate agents. More today. That was as of October 1st.
And when I looked at the numbers of how many closings that have happened, that's per year. That's for the year, right?
The 500 number is?
No, for the closings.
Closings. Yeah. So that was year to date. Those were year to date closings. Yes.
So that right now is averaging about 3.5 closings per agent.
Okay.
So does that, I guess, putting this all together, but does it feel like there's like competition within ourselves? I know that's like a weird.
Well, the simple answer is you're independent contractors. So you have competition from everybody, regardless of what company they're in.
Right.
Right. So your competition in Fairfield County is, 10,000 real estate agents.
Yep.
Are 500 of them or 499 others of them also KW agents? Yes.
Yep. Okay. I just wonder, I just was trying to wrap my head around those numbers and just make sure that what I was looking at for the numbers were valid, if it was like monthly, annually.
Yeah, and here's the other thing I would say about those numbers is that it's you really should. I mean, you can look at numbers however you choose to, but you really can't take our total sales for the year and divide it by 500 real estate agents and say that our average agent sells 3.5 houses a year.
Right. That wasn't making sense.
Right. Because the 80-20 rule, right, shows up in our industry, it shows up in our offices, and frankly, in real estate, it's more like the 90-10 rule. Like 90% of the business is done by 10% of the real estate agents, right? So there are 50 people of those 500 people who do a lion's share of the business.
Yep.
Your goal, right? If you choose to make money at a high level in real estate, your goal is to make sure you're one of those 10%, not the other 90%, right? Does that help with an interpretation of those numbers?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think I just was putting that together, but then also with how we were working our numbers of our goals, and I just kept going, okay, that doesn't that doesn't line up.
Yeah, there's a reality, and just to I promised you that I would only ever tell you the truth. So let's see, there's 38 people on this call, right? So 38 times, say, let's even say times 20%, right? So the reality is the 80-20 rule says that 8 of you on this call will earn at a high level in real estate.
Yeah.
And the rest will earn, but perhaps not at a high level, right? And again, you get to choose which bucket you are in. You get to make those decisions, because it's just about creating the plan and then doing the activities.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that I have spent 16 years as the owner and broker of real estate organizations to do my damnedest to make sure that everybody that we're in business with creates the income that I think they deserve. And here's the flaw in that. The flaw in that is that for many people that we're in business with, I think they deserve to earn more than they have a desire to earn,
Mm-hmm.
or more than they have a desire to do the work to earn, right? And so I've had to learn over 16 years to coach and teach and guide people from the perspective of, what do you want? I'm happy to help you get whatever you want, but it has to start with what you want. It can't be what I want. Because there's a path forward. If you want to close, 2 or 3 houses a year, because that's the path that you've set yourself on, is I'm looking to earn $30,000 extra to make sure that my kid who's in college, like I pay for college each year, or I pay for half of college each year, right? And that's the goal. Well, there's a path for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking to earn $300,000 a year because you are the primary breadwinner in your household, there's a path for that as well. And each are absolutely attainable by each and every one of you. You just have to choose it and then dive into the activities that puts you on that path. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes.
You're quite welcome. All right, anything else from Scripps? Anything else from Jeff Glover? I'll put one on the table for you because I think it's important. One of the things Jeff said is, if you don't fool yourself into thinking that you don't use Scripps already, right? Especially those of you who have some experience in selling homes on this call. You use Scripts. You don't realize you use Scripts, but you tend to do things the same. You tend to have similar conversations when you meet with a seller. You tend to have similar conversations when you meet with a buyer. The caution there is, if you've developed your own Scripts, if you're just kind of winging it and saying the things that you think make sense, even though you're saying them over and over and over again, you could be using Scripts that actually don't work, right? You could be pushing people away instead of attracting them to you. So be really cautious about how you say what you say. And when we hand you these Scripts in these session materials, spend some time with them, because they are tested. They are tried and true. There are reasons why a script is a script is a script. There are reasons why certain things work and others don't work as well. You may still get a result. You may not get the best result. You may not get the most effective or efficient result. Make sense? Talk to me a little bit about, when I say Scripts, what comes to mind? The good, the bad, and the in-between.
Like doing things effectively to get.
Yeah, I love that answer. Doing things effectively, right? So Yenny equates Scripts with efficiency. And she's right, because scripts are simply a system, right? You should write that down someplace, because that's not in anything else that you're going to, any of your materials. Scripts are a system. If you're looking for systems to run your business on, scripts are just a verbal system, right? And when do you need a system? You need a system anytime you do something more than once, right? To create effectiveness and efficiency. Well, for the most part, we talk for a living, right? So to make sure that you have a system in what you say and how you say it, crazy important. Love that answer, Yenny. What else?
Confidence builder.
I'm sorry, Lisa, say it again.
It builds confidence to be prepared and know what you're saying and doing.
Yeah, Mama, it sure does, right? So scripts give you confidence. I find that one of the things that prevents agents, especially when they're newer in their career or relaunching their career, one of the things that prevents agents from really launching is a lack of confidence. I don't yet know how to do that, right? There are some people who have a natural level of high confidence. They can kind of just go and do whatever, however. Most of us don't, however. Most of us need some version of reassurance before we move forward into something new. I can tell you, if you've ever been to Family Reunion with us, Family Reunion is our annual convention, which happens in February, which this year, like Mega Camp, will more than likely be virtual. We take everybody out to dinner at least one night of the time we're there. And during that dinner, I will usually, it's tradition for me to find a chair and stand on it and kind of talk, and we do awards and I make a little speech. And we had an assistant team leader 2 years ago who was with us, who afterwards she said, "Oh, you know, that was so lovely what you just said. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you just, stand up there and have those things roll off your tongue." And I said, "Well, would you like to know the secret?" And she said, "Sure." And I took out my phone and I went to the notes section of my phone and I showed her the 3.5 pages of notes that I took out of my head to organize my thoughts the day before, and the 24 hours of reading through that and practicing and saying it out loud 2 or 3 times, so that when I did stand up in front of everybody, I didn't look like an idiot. I sounded like I knew what I was saying. I sounded like I meant what I said. Well, because I did mean what I said, but you know what I mean. But it had nothing to do with, oh, Rick is so good at standing up and pontificating about whatever. It was preparation, because preparation for me gives me confidence. If I'm prepared, I am confident that I can then go and handle and do anything, even if something goes sideways. That level of preparation gives me confidence to know I can handle whatever sideways issue might show up. Right? And scripts, just like writing a speech before you give it, scripts give you that underlying level of confidence to know exactly how you might answer, or ask, I should say, in any given situation. Now, the key to scripts is remembering that once you learn the scripts, you have to forget that you've learned them, right? You've got to kind of internalize them. Hey, did I give you the four steps of script work? I don't think I gave you that. So you should write this down, because this is important. So there are 4 steps when you're doing script work. Step number 1 is memorization. You are simply going to memorize the words. For some of you, that's easy. For some of you, that's less easy. Bogdan put in the chat box, repetition is the mother of studying. And you know what? When it comes to memorization, repetition is the absolute key, right? I told you my first chosen career path was to be an actor on the stage, and sometimes they hand you a script, you know, that's 250 pages long. Like, okay, really? You gotta just shove that into your brain. And the best way to do that is repeat, 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 repeat. You read it, you read it, you read it, you read it, you read it. You say it out loud over and over and over and over and over again. Then you have someone quiz you over and over and over and over again. And eventually it just gets in your brain, right? So memorization is step number one. Step number two is internalize, right? It's internalization. So you're going to memorize first, then you're going to internalize. And internalization of the memorized material means you're taking it out of your head and allowing it to kind of sink into your body. When you internalize something, it becomes more reflexive. It becomes more you. It becomes more natural. That's the internalization part. Step number three, customize. Now, some of you are like, woohoo! Finally, I get to change those dumb words that they ask us to say to something that sounds more like me. So here's what I will tell you. I don't know that I'd go down that path. Customization doesn't necessarily mean change all the words so you think it sounds more like you. Customize really means once you've memorized and internalized this stuff, you get to customize how and when you use it. You get to utilize it in certain scenarios and customize how you bring it to the table. But I don't recommend that you go and change stuff. Because again, the words that work are the words that work. And if you change one of the important words that work, it might not work as well. Right? Few would argue that Meryl Streep, at least in our lifetime, that Meryl Streep is one of the best actresses who ever walked the planet. Right? She's been nominated for like a bazillion Academy Awards. She's won, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them, something like that. Has anything she's ever uttered on the screen actually been written by her? No. She takes somebody else's words, memorizes them, internalizes them, and then based on how she chooses to customize a scenario that she's been given, goes ahead and does step number 4, which is capitalize. And boy, does she capitalize. Right, but I want you to remember all of those characters that she plays, when you watch her movies and you're like crying like a baby because of what she does or says or how she does or says what she does, it's not because those things are really happening to her, and it's not because they did happen to her and she's just recounting a story of what happened to her, because she didn't write it. Just like the scripts that we're giving you, she's handed a piece of paper and said, memorize and internalize this, and then we're going to give you a set of circumstances for you to customize and capitalize with these words on. It's the same thing. Truly, it's the same thing. What else when I say scripts? Anybody have a negative reaction to the word scripts? Tell the truth.
I do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just think it doesn't feel real to me sometimes, you know?
Well, and so it not feeling real is interesting, Martine, because I wonder if you've had those 4 steps before now, right? And I wonder if you put yourself through each of those 4 steps, if you would still feel like it doesn't feel real. Have you memorized? Have you internalized? Have you customized so that you can then capitalize? Because if you don't go through those 4 steps, it's reading words off of a piece of paper, right? And that's not ultimately how we utilize scripts. So I would encourage you, if you have a negative thought or you think scripts come across negative, well, it's robotic, it's insincere, it doesn't sound like me. Here's the good news. When you're dealing with clients, most of the time they don't know you. They don't know what you sound like. Right? Does anyone know what Meryl Streep really sounds like? Has anyone ever had dinner with Meryl? I only have a couple of times, and the other people were there, so I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with her one-on-one. No, I'm kidding. It was funny because some of your faces were like, really? Dinner with Meryl Streep?
In your dreams.
There are some other people who would be before Meryl Streep in my dreams, but Meryl wouldn't be bad to have dinner with. You know, so just recognize that if it feels like they're not you, what that says to me is you haven't said them enough. Because if you say anything enough times, it just becomes you, right? Go ahead, Donna.
So I just wanted to share that sometimes it's okay, completely okay for it to not sound like you, as long as it sounds like someone who does this at a really high level.
Mm.
And I will tell you, one of the reasons why I take Ignite over and over and over and over again is because I love to hear Rick do the scripts. And there are times when I have been presenting to someone and my significant other who's sitting right there, hi, when I'm done and we walk out of the room, he looks at me, he says, Rick would have been so proud, because what's coming out of my mouth are the words and the scripts that he's taught me in exactly the way, the effective way. I mean, you're going to hear them as we go through these classes. And I'm telling you, it's the most effective thing. So I don't mind not. And then all of a sudden, it does sound like me because they just drip out without even thinking about it anymore. And then it's totally me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and I love that you said that. You're so 100% right, because frankly, many of the scripts that I teach you, let me restate that, most of the scripts that I teach you, they're not mine. Some of them are, but many of them, to most of them, are not. And so I just heard somebody else say them enough and incorporated them into what I do and created success with it, right? Which means now I get to go and pass them on to you. Here's the other thing I will tell you in all transparency. I am better today. I haven't been actively in the field since 2006, so 14 years, right? It's been 14 years since I actively drove a buyer around or actively listed a property. Holy crap, 14 years. That is kind of hard to imagine. And yet it's been 14 years since I have done that on a daily basis as my main job. I am better today, hands down by far, with scripts for buyers and sellers and scripts for business, scripts for financial conversations, scripts for wealth building, scripts for any and all of the stuff that we do for a living today than I ever was when I was actually in the field. Right? I think I saw Debbie Orr jump on. She can attest to the fact, because she was in business with me prior to 2006. And I think she would agree that I didn't have a mastery of scripts when I was actually in the field. I was a little bit more of a wing it guy than I was a scripts guy. I made it work, but I was less at a place of really knowing what to say and how to say it back then than I am today. Why is that?
Because you teach them now.
Yeah, exactly right. Right? Because teaching is the highest form of mastery. If I don't know these things, I have to sit in front of you guys 3 times a week. I don't want to look stupid. And I don't want you to walk away from a session with me and say, boy, well, the concepts are interesting, but I don't think I'd buy anything from him. Right? I need you to hear the way it can work in the field and trust that I have done that. I have done it. I'm just better at them today than I ever was when I was actually working with buyers and sellers. And it has everything to do with a high level of practice, 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 practice. For those of you who are newer to our company, for the last 6.5 months, I have been on Zoom 5 days a week, 5 hours a day, doing this in one way, shape, or form, practicing scripts. Right, earlier today, we talked about some buyer scripts. We do seller scripts. We do wealth building scripts. We have Ignite. We do all the scripts in Ignite. Right, and that's just the last 6.5 months where I haven't been able to be in front of you in person. Practice works. Practice of scripts gives you confidence to go out and get the job done. And what I would ask you to do is set aside any thoughts that you might have around a discomfort around using scripts. Because as Donna attested to, at some point, if you decide today that it doesn't matter if they sound like you or not, as long as they sound like a real estate professional and they get the job done, what you'll find is, so I said that, they said yes, and I got paid. I think I might want to do that again. So then you do it again, and the same thing happens. And so it's like you're training yourself to have less of a judgment around what it is you're saying and how you're saying it, because what you start to realize is the things you're saying work. And after a while, it just goes away because it does sound like you. It sounds like real estate professional you. Maybe it doesn't sound like you who does, maybe it's not mom you or dad you or spouse you, right? Maybe it's not you at the supermarket. Maybe it's not you out with your friends. Maybe it's not Friday night you, but it could certainly be real estate professional you, right? I'll use, where's Effie? I want to use Effie as an example real quick. So Effie, you're an attorney, right?
Yes, that's true.
Tell me, what's your specialization?
Financial services litigation and real estate.
So in financial services litigation, there is a language that if Effie started to talk with us about how she talks to clients or how she litigates some of these cases around financial services, half of us wouldn't know what she was talking about, because there's a different language that she has to use to be effective in her job. Now, Effie and I didn't plan this ahead of time. I'm assuming that I'm correct in that. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Right? And so what Effie had to do was learn those scripts. She had to learn that language. And she may behave very differently. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of litigators who behave very differently when they are litigating versus when they step out of that litigation role.
Yes.
Right? There's something you turn on when you're litigating that you kind of turn off when you step out of it. Because frankly, most litigators I know, if they always operated in litigator mode, they'd explode, right?
Well, every time you walk into court, you're putting on a performance for the judge, for opposing counsel, and you prepared. There's no way you would ever go to an oral argument without knowing what the brief said, knowing what the cases said, knowing what your position is, and I guess it's the same here.
It is exactly the same, right? Because the briefs and your position papers and all the things that you spend time on before you go into court, the research that's done, discovery, all that stuff, that all contributes to you writing scripts so you're using words that work to make a point, to convince someone of something, right? So it's kind of the same thing. Which is so thank you for chiming in there, because I think the two things are parallel, and we could probably do that with many of the either former or current roles that some of you play, right? If you look down deep enough, there's a language inside of an industry that you have to learn flat to make a point to the people who you need to make a point to in a way that is convincing. Whew, all righty. Anything else on scripts? Have we beat that horse good and dead?
Cindy Kane is trying to say something.
Oh, yes, she is. Hello, Cindy. I didn't see you. Go ahead. Except you're muted, I think.
I was going to say something.
Go ahead, Christian, and then Cindy, I'll see if I can help you unmute.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So go ahead, Cindy, ladies first.
One of the things, because I took Ignite previously and did scripts and have practiced scripts, one of the things I found that really helped was once I thought I knew them well enough to start practicing maybe with somebody else, I had somebody else interrupt me often. And I did that purposely. I asked them to interrupt me so I got comfortable knowing that eventually somebody is going to interrupt me, and I don't want to get thrown off to the point where I don't remember where I was. I don't remember what I'm supposed to say next. You really need to know them like the back of your hand.
Yeah, well said. And that's really smart, right? And so the idea of and as we get into more script work, which we are going to spend time together doing some script work. And so as we move into that, I'm going to ask you in our time together to mostly be pretty easy with each other. And as you continue to grow in script work, focusing in on things like Cindy talked about, having somebody interrupt you, having distractions pop up, right? Having your phone ring, God forbid, that you forgot to turn it off. Like having stuff happen so that it doesn't throw you off, that you don't know where else to go, you can't get back on track, is an important thing to practice, right? And then at some point, having some practice with the potential client, the role play person, being a little bit of a jerk, right? Because sometimes we have kind of those buyers or those sellers who don't cooperate as much, right? And so growing into having some role plays where someone's giving you a hard time, so you can play with how you continue to stay on track even when someone's not cooperating or giving you a little bit of a hard time, right? Because that's real, those things happen. But it's stepping that through. Thank you, Cindy. I love the fact that you've been practicing and you've created a practice schedule for yourself that continues to help you gain confidence to know that any situation you can handle. It's so massively important and will come back to benefit you. Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, sorry, Christian, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Christian was next. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask you, I don't know if you went over this. So in terms of you practice script yourself, right?
Sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you. There's whistling going on in the background. So.
Sorry. Let me walk out of here. Okay, so in your experience, you started off with scripts as well too. You practiced them as well.
So what I heard was when I started off with scripts too, and I practiced them. Is that the question?
Yeah.
So yes, 100%. I didn't start off with as many scripts as you guys are going to start off with, because my version of training when I got into real estate was, there's your desk, there's your phone, call if you need me. Wait, well, excuse me, I need you. Well, what's the matter? Well, what do I do with the desk and the phone? Well, call people. Oh, okay. Wait a minute, come back. Call who? I mean, it was pretty much the go figure it out on your own. So I had to find my own stuff, which is why some of it I wrote and some of it I found and kind of incorporated into my world. And yet the idea of utilizing words that work has been with me since I started in real estate.
And if you don't, I'm asking, how long did it take you to become a perfectionist script person?
So that's a good question. And so what I would say is, I think that depends on you. Some people, and I wouldn't strive for perfection. I would strive for better than you were yesterday, right? It's about progress, not perfection. And so, because perfection is like that unattainable goal, and for some of you, it will drive you crazy because you'll be on this search for something that doesn't really exist. So make sure that it's about progress and being better today than you were yesterday. I would say that for me, to kind of shake I'm not sure exactly how this will work and what the process is and what I should say when. I kind of got through that in the first 4 to 6 months with my first few clients, and just kind of shook that off then and decided that this was the way I was going to run my business. This was the way I would practice. This is the way I would answer. These were my policies. This was, and I made some decisions early on that allowed me to continue to grow, but grow efficiently. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, I think we had Seth and then Donna.
Yeah, just a quick question more on, like, I guess it's either etiquette or presentation of yourself in a meeting. So I found in the past when I had to memorize a script, I would go memorize, and then I would always have in front of me kind of the key bullet points or reminders for myself if I'm in a situation where there's a hostile buyer or seller, and I kind of not get shook, but kind of lose my train of thought. Is that kind of best practice, or is it best to just go in there with a blank sheet of paper and have your points in your head and take your notes as you go?
Yes, that's a great question, and I'll answer it from at least my own experience. I think there is nothing wrong with cheat sheets, having minimally some bullet points, right? When we get into the buyer side and the seller side in the coming weeks, what we'll walk you through is, okay, so here are the scripts for your listing consultation. They're pages and pages and pages and pages and pages long. Is there a way to create something, some kind of a guide, some kind of a PowerPoint? Can you take some of the, we'll show you some of the scripts that we've turned into like questionnaires for you. So that the script is actually in front of you, but to the seller, it just looks like you've got a form you have to fill out. And then you're just going through the script with pen and paper, showing that, nobody says, I beg your pardon, are you reading those questions or do you have them memorized, right? And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think it keeps you focused and keeps you calmer, especially when you're newer and you don't have all this stuff in your head yet, right? The fun thing right now is that many of you are pivoting, at least sometimes, to Zoom appointments, right? And so if you're doing Zoom appointments, well, you have the scripts right in front of you. You can have them taped on the wall and the camera be here, and be having a conversation referencing the scripts, right? And so you do have an opportunity to do a little bit of both. I'll throw out the example that I often give here. Do you ever go to a restaurant and there, you're with 3 other people, so there's 4 of you, and you sit down and the waiter comes over and says, "Hi, my name is Rick. I'll be helping you this evening. What can I get you?" And they go around the table and everyone gives their order, and nothing gets written down. Does that make anybody else really anxious? That drives me berserk. Do you need a pen? Because there's 4 of us and there's a lot of stuff going on here. How can you possibly keep it all in your head? So as a consumer, for me, having somebody who is listening and writing things down or working from something, to me, that's very comforting. So I think that Seth asks a really great question, and that is it imperative to all of a sudden have everything memorized? And the answer is no. There are lots of different ways to kind of cheat that a little bit. And there are lots of different ways that you may never commit to memory some of the things we're talking about, because they're just forms you fill out. And the way you go through working with the clients to create comfort for you and comfort for them will kind of dictate that level of confidence.
Yeah, it's every 2 years.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're
Very
welcome.
helpful.
Donna, go ahead.
So you kind of covered it, but I just wanted to underscore the fact that when you're doing these, they don't have the scripts. They have no idea if you did paragraph 1, 2, 3, and then skip to 7 and realize you skipped a few when you go back. It's totally okay. They just want to hear that you know what you're doing. And through Ignite and through what Rick is saying, I do go in, I have a clipboard. I have a clipboard, has sheets of paper on it, and I am taking notes, and sometimes I have like part of a script. I definitely have the questions written out. And I say, do you mind? I'm just going to follow through. I want to make sure I cover everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm in charge. I know what I'm doing. I have a process, because I tell them that's part of my value proposition, is I have a proven step-by-step process that will get your home sold. So here I'm demonstrating it. So yeah, it's a cheat sheet for me, absolutely. But it looks like I know what when the doctor comes in, he or she has their standard questions. It's the same thing.
Yep. And the doctor and or the nurse work from a piece of paper, right? So not to miss anything. There's a reality, and so I'm going to say this for the first time in this Ignite. It certainly isn't the last time you're going to hear me say this. Remember, you are always modeling behavior, right? When you are standing in front of a client, when you are on the telephone, when you're with a colleague, you're always modeling behavior. And what Donna just described for you is you change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. What she described was coming prepared, clipboard in hand, with a process and some of the words and a lot of the questions and all that stuff. And you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it from the perspective of, I'm newish and I don't exactly know what I'm doing, so I have to cheat. Now that's modeling a form of behavior that lacks confidence. Or you can model the behavior of, this is my process and this is how I do it. And once you really settle in on, this is how I do this, and I'm going to show you that I am process oriented. I'm going to show you that there's a plan here. I'm going to show you that what you say matters to me because I'm taking notes. I'm going to show you that I want to make sure we miss nothing, leave no stone unturned to make sure that you have the maximum benefit possible from this whole experience. Now you're modeling a very different behavior, right? And so sometimes the same path with a slightly different mindset has you modeling two very different things. One gets you hired, one less so. Make sense?
Yeah, just one quick follow-up to that point you just made.
Yeah, of course.
In your experiences, have you seen, buyers and sellers more receptive to the technology approach to the same item? So meaning, you bring in your iPad, and whether you have a keyboard or your pencil, you're taking notes on that? Or do you think that people still just have that, comfort with pen and paper in front of them?
Yeah, I think that is, it's a great question. And I think that it's completely up to your comfort zone with how you best take notes. I think that there are, when Debbie and I were listing property and we were still going to the client's house for the actual consultation, we're going to suggest that you bring them to the office nowadays. And yes, there's a version for bizarro world that we're in, but the idea of, in the old days, going back and sitting in their living room and having that consultation, we used to bring, back when having a laptop was like a big deal, we used to bring a laptop just to get technology points. We oftentimes never opened it. But we arrived and took it out, and there it was, and so we got those technology points. And so there is something to be said for, if you walk in with your iPad and you're typing on the iPad, or you have a stylus, or you're doing whatever, you do get some stylus points. No, Christian gets stylus points for being at the barber. You do get some technology points for that, not with everybody, right? Some people won't care. Some people will be impressed. Some people will say, "What are you doing on that flat screen that you're?" Some people won't get it. So I don't think it. I think it matters based on what creates comfort for you. I don't think it matters to the client.
I just wanted to add, if I can.
Yes, Christy.
To that point, I just like in my full-time job that I have currently, when I'm holding meetings and that type of thing, it's always nice when I just voice that, oh, okay, just bear with me for a second while I take some notes, or just, put it out there that that's what I'm doing, whether it's you're actually writing or using your phone or whatever device. So I just think it's nice to put it out there. And then I also think that also gives you a minute to kind of process things and set the pace a little bit differently, if you will.
Yeah, I love that. It's so what Christy's saying is it's a little bit of a Twix bar, right? Do you ever see those commercials where somebody asks somebody a question and they don't know the answer, so they shove a Twix bar in their mouth? And so it gives them time to kind of chew the Twix bar while they're thinking of the best answer. And so a version of that is it gives you an opportunity to kind of collect yourselves if you're put in a position of kind of not remembering where to go next. And you know what else it does? I think it sends a message of cool cucumber, right? It just sends that message of, you know, I'm going to take the time that I need and the time that I believe we need together to make sure this is a positive experience, to make sure this is done correctly, instead of the angst of feeling rushed. I love that. Great point. You know what else I heard when Christy mentioned that? I heard control. I heard it sets a tone of control. And that's important, right? It's important. Because control and confidence go hand in hand. I have found that when you are the most confident person who walks in the room with a whole lot of passion around the topic, and that passion comes out professionally, it's really hard to resist you. You are very attractive at that moment to that potential client. They want to say yes because they're excited by how excited you are, and they're reassured by how cool as a cucumber you are. And those two things together, that's a powerful attractor. Well said. You guys are really smart.
Can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes, Anne.
So I get scripts and I get that you should feel comfortable and all of that, but that's great when you can make the connection. Is there a rule around how you do effective emailing and texting? So before you can even connect with the person, right? Because assuming you've got their phone number, their email, and their cell phone number, if they're not picking up the phone and you can't even get the conversation, are there general scripted messages so you should be taking parts of this information and emailing it?
Yes, that's a really great question. And I think my answer to that is it depends, right? It depends on what you're attempting to accomplish. What I would say is the example Ann put on the table is appointment setting, right? So it's you've got leads, you're reaching out, and you're looking to convert, right? Remember we talked about lead generation and lead conversion being the two most important things that you will do on any given day. And that lead conversion, in my opinion, is almost more important than lead generation, because it's the conversion that moves them from just being a name and a number to an actual appointment, right? And so what I would say is there are definitely scripts that are designed as appointment setting scripts versus having the appointment on the telephone. Right, and as we get into our seller unit and our buyer unit, I'm going to point those two differences out. That there are certain, and as we get even further along into today, there are certain scripts that are more specific for setting an appointment. Right, specifically, wow, it sounds like you have, and again, getting somebody on the phone. There, if you're looking at getting somebody on the telephone. What I have always found to be effective, it's been a long week. English is starting to become my third language. So what I have found to be effective is kind of dangle a carrot. And what I mean by that is, yeah, hi, this is Rick Scott. I see that you registered on my website. It looks like you were looking at some properties in Wilton. I'm curious if I could save you tons of time and potentially thousands of dollars on a home purchase in Wilton, would it be worth 5 minutes of your time to have a quick conversation with me? If so, give me a call back at whatever. Right, and so now all of a sudden I'm dangling a carrot. I'm not calling saying, hi, call me back, I want to give you information. I'm offering them a potential benefit, right, to call me back. So appointment setting scripts like that, or appointment setting scripts once you actually have someone on the hook. Maybe let's stay in Anne's example where you're emailing, they're not answering the phone, you're emailing. I find takeaway scripts to be really powerful, right? So what I would encourage is if you've got a potential lead and you've signed them up and they're receiving information from you automatically, right, via your KW consumer app, and so they're getting the updates through command on properties that may make sense to them, and you're calling them and or emailing and or texting them for some kind of a response or some kind of feedback on what you're sending them, after a week or maybe two, I think that it's time for a takeaway call. Then you make a phone call and you send a text and or an email that says, "Hi, so-and-so, this is Rick Scott. Your trial period for on my home search tool is about to expire. If you'd like to continue to receive these updates, please call me for a quick conversation at blah, 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 blah." Take it away from them. And if they don't call, turn it off. Right?
Hey, Rick, can I share something?
Yeah, of course, David, go ahead.
So to this point, Lisa and I met a lady at an open house, kind of connected with her. We put her on a drip campaign. We were emailing, we were trying to reach her, we were sending her properties, and nothing. It was just, she was ghosting us. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue today, and Lisa and I happened to have been practicing our scripts last night while we were having maybe an adult beverage in front of the fire. And today, all of a sudden, out of the blue, this lady calls Lisa, and now we are sending off a exclusive right to represent. It's just, it works. It just simply works.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because sometimes what you're dealing with is you converting a client is oftentimes more important from a time perspective for you than it is for them, right? They have a different timeline, and our customers that oftentimes turn into clients don't necessarily share with us the timeline, especially when you're converting leads in the beginning, right? When leads turn into actual appointments, even before the appointment becomes an appointment with a client, maybe it's a hiring appointment, the lead has their own timeline, and sometimes they share it and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they share it and then they violate the timeline that they shared with you, right? And they don't call to say, "Hey, you know what, I'm going to be out of pocket for the next 3 weeks because I'm having surgery." They don't tell you that, and we interpret it oftentimes as they don't want me, they're not a valid lead, they're this, they're that, and the other thing. And if you just kind of keep at it, sometimes they turn into actual business.
So then, but then by nature of that, you're saying you shouldn't turn, if he had turned it off, then he would have lost her.
Well, but you don't know that, because again, the takeaway itself is a version of getting people to pay attention, right? That's why sometimes I used to do 2 weeks. Maybe for you it's 3 weeks or a month. I was willing to give people 2 months of stuff and then challenge them to say, "Are you ready? Do you still want this?" If someone is really looking to engage with you in another week or two, they don't want it to turn off. And so then by taking it away from them, you get some kind of response. And now you know that they want to keep going. Okay, great. You know what? Do me a favor. I'll turn it on for another 24 hours, but let's you and I have a phone conversation tomorrow to make sure that the criteria that I have in this system is specific to your needs. I want to make sure I got your needs right. I'm going to continue to ask for an appointment. If it's this early in leads, I just want to have a conversation. I want you to speak to me in person. Make sense? And here's the other thing to remember. The other thing to remember is that nothing that I say to you works 100% of the time. Nothing that anybody says to you works 100% of the time. So some of it is feeling your way through it. I'm going to give you scripts, strategies, examples of how stuff has been done and is still done by your colleagues. And yet none of it works 100% of the time. Might I turn somebody off that would have purchased with me a month later had I kept them on? Well, sure. But my experience says that, first of all, lead generation needs to be a volume activity. Right? You should probably write that down because that's a really important statement I just made. Lead generation has to be a volume activity. You're not looking for a buyer. You're looking for 40 buyers that, when you boil everything down to it, turns into 4 or 5 sales. Part of the struggle that many real estate agents have is they search for a buyer and then choose to go and sell that buyer a house, and that buyer isn't someone who's going to actually close, right? They forget to build in the fallout ratio. They forget to build in the something goes sideways on somebody. They forget that all of a sudden pandemics show up, right? Stuff happens, and we have to plan for the stuff. So lead generation is a volume activity. When you make it a volume activity, suddenly the person that, when I reached out and said, your subscription is expiring and will expire tomorrow if I don't hear from you, that gets turned off, that might just have, if I had left that on, turned into a lucky sale a month later, or at least a client a month later. What I'm counting on is more success the more I do that, with people actually saying, no, don't turn me off. I will reach out to you. I will prove to you that I will engage. So I look for more success from what I do than the one-offs that I might lose, right? It's a mindset of abundance, not of scarcity. I'm okay losing 1 or 2 over here, right? I'll give you another example. Sometimes people leave our company. Now, the good news is that doesn't happen very often. And yet when it does happen, I'm forced to take a look and say, okay, why did that person leave our company? Well, there's a simple answer. Our company is not for everybody. It's just not. And I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with maybe what really sings to you is a company that is so focused on marketing and pretty flyers and brochures and an auction affiliation because somehow that sells houses. I'm not sure what the point of that is, but and so maybe the Sotheby's world is a better fit for you based on what you think real estate is, right? Now, that's not a slight against Sotheby's, but we are different. We're different than Sotheby's. We're a little bit more substance. They're a little bit more style, right? If I had to just kind of put it in one sentence, their style over substance, I kind of feel like we're substance over style. What's my point? My point is lead generation has to be a volume activity. Part of the reason our business model works is because we focus on quantity. Our offices are big for a reason, because when you guys cap, you stop paying us. So we just financially, we need to have large offices to make sure that there's always somebody who happens to be paying company dollar, right? Or else the staff starves and we'd be sitting here in the dark. And that doesn't help support you. So what's my point? My point is lead generation has to be a volume activity. I'm less concerned about people leaving the company because it just wasn't the right fit. I'd rather support that and say, if we're not the right fit, let's find you a place that is a good fit and make sure that we're hiring enough people that the 1 or 2 who choose not to be in business with us, it's okay. because we have more coming in the front door than we have going out the back door. Do you see the analogy to the listings and sales business? Because it's the exact same thing. A mindset of abundance versus a mindset of scarcity, which then turns into activities that drive abundance versus activities that drive scarcity. But you gotta start with the mindset, and then the activities follow. And then here's the fun part. Results of abundance follow all of that versus results of scarcity. If you've never heard the scarcity versus abundance conversation before, again, you should jot that down as well, because that if you learn nothing else tonight on tonight's call, recognizing that there are two separate mindsets, one of scarcity and one of abundance, and that more comes from a scarcity, from an abundant mindset than from a scarcity mindset, you will have gotten your money's worth tonight. I don't remember what question I was answering anymore, and yet, so whoever answered that asked that question, did I answer it? I don't remember.
I think it was Ann, no?
Oh, it was Ann. Ann, did I answer that question?
Yes, you answered the question, thanks.
Okay,
I think
perfect.
you answered and then some.
Okay, good. I like to be complete, so comprehensive. All righty. Where are we? Holy Christmas. All right, I think Ignite this time is going to run through December. Because clearly, we are not powering through this material. There's just so much to impart to you all, and we get on these really good conversations, and I don't want to shortchange them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start source of business, because I promised source of business, and so we're going to at least have some conversation around source of business, because I want you to start hearing some source of business conversation so that you can start making decisions about how you're going to implement. Right? Remember, Monday is our first reporting day. And so what does that mean? It means you all made a decision by Wednesday about how many appointments a week you were committing to. Remember, that wasn't you committing to those appointments sometime in the future when we finished class together. That was starting to commit to those appointments now. Hey, quick question. How many of you did the homework that I sent you out with on Wednesday evening? Who can tell me what it was?
To call 3 people
Call
and
3.
ask them how they're doing.
When you're in real estate.
Exactly right. So call 3 people. Care calls and or business calls, your choice. So talk to me, how did that go? So a lot of you raised your hand, and I'm excited about that. How did that go? What did you find? Any ahas from it? Any business from it yet?
Well, my experience was I called 3 people, and 2 of them were past clients. And because that's the goal, to get some sort of business in my next call. And the other one was a mom from my son's, I forget the name. A mom of my son's friend at high school. So that I am in real estate as well, because at one point at a soccer game we talked about for her to become a real estate agent, but she didn't make that course anyway. So, but it was impressive how people felt like very happy of hearing from me. One of those calls was a previous client that I had a short sale with him, but the attorney didn't made a good job, and I submitted like 5 offers and none of those went through. All of a sudden, the attorney referred him to another agent, and he finally lost his house by foreclosure. He got that call like very in a grateful manner that I was calling to check on him and his family. So it was a very good feeling.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Annie, because it's what you've described for those, what you described is what most of those contacts, most of that outreach feels like. They appreciate it. It makes you feel good because they're appreciative, right? It's underlining the fact that reaching out to your database is not about trolling for business. It's about caring for other human beings, right? And when you come from the perspective of caring about the people in your database and calling to see how they are, trust me, when you follow it up with a, hey, just wanted to give you a call to say, Thanksgiving is next week. I'm just calling through all of my past clients to say how massively grateful I am for you and for the opportunity to help and serve you and your family. Thank you so, so much. All of a sudden, when you've made a couple of those phone calls in a row, the psychology of the call creates a feeling of indebtedness on the people you're calling. It kind of makes them feel like, oh my goodness, Yenny just keeps calling, saying all these wonderful things. She makes us feel so wonderful. At some point, I would say to you, what can I do for you? Thank you so much. You're so awesome. Is there anything I can do for you? And they've opened a door to have a business conversation now. And you can simply say, what I would so appreciate is if you could give me the opportunity to help somebody like you in real estate, by either buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate, I would be so honored. And here's how you can do that, right? So you get to have all these care calls that eventually turn into these business calls, and you don't have to feel like you're trolling for business. All right, Margaret, I think was next.
Yes, so I was going to say that mine was kind of easy because one of my goals right before I did this was to do a Facebook page. So I finally did, and I put an initial thing out. And I'm fortunate that I got like 160 likes, which is a great start. So I've been slowly reaching out to every person who liked it just to say, hey, thanks so much. I'm not directly talking about do you have anything, but telling my story. So that's actually been really great.
Love it, love it. And the indirect approach does work. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get results, and yet it does work, right? So be careful about judgment, because sometimes people judge, well, I'm not doing this direct approach, and so therefore I'm not doing a good job. That is not true, right? If you have a valid message and you use the indirect approach, it can take a little bit longer, and yet you likely will get to the same spot as somebody else with some additional time. So great job. I love it. Cindy and then Daniel.
So I did call, I called 2 people for care calls and 1 business call.
Nice.
And the care calls are great. They love when I call them. I do it often just to see how they are. And the business one, people I'm working with, and I have an appointment to go back and sit with them on November 6th. To go back over some numbers. I'm going to be listing their place and their buying. So we're going to have another meeting to see if any of the numbers have changed by then.
Great. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And then close. We're going to talk about that on Monday as well. Daniel.
I was going to say, I called a few people, and I'm at the age kind of where it's like I'm 22 years old. So a lot of the parents, their kids are just starting to move out. And it's like a lot of these parents want to move, but it's just that they don't know when the right time is. And I see the issue for me is, like, do I kind of keep following up on them like every few months, like, oh, did you figure out if you're gonna move yet? They're like still in the process of like fixing their home or doing the upstairs, and then they want to move out somewhere, but it's just like I'm not sure if I should,
Got it.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's a great problem to have, right? Because the problem of I'm not 100% sure what my follow-up should be only happens when you've actually done initial outreach, right? If you haven't done any initial outreach, you don't have the problem of what do I follow up with. So I'm thrilled that you have that issue. Here's my suggestion: incorporate it into the phone call. Right. So if you're dialing into people who And you have a perfect opportunity, right? At 22, you're right. You can be talking with your friends, moving into their parents, and if your friends' parents, if your friends are the same age-ish as you are in that just post-college period, they may be looking at opportunities to downsize, right? And so it gives you an awesome opportunity. What I would do is if you're having that conversation, if that's even part of the phone call, I would ask a question. To say, so, that sounds awesome. Would it be helpful if we connected periodically to update you, so you could update me on where you were and I could update you on market trends? Would it also be helpful if I enrolled you in this system, right? And you could use the KW Consumer app through command in this system to start monitoring homes that come on the market in your price range, or monitoring your neighborhood, so that you can start doing some research on your own via the data that I'm providing you, right? So it's always another question. Ask a question, because now you're gaining permission. It's kind of like opt-in, right? You're asking them, would it be okay if I followed up with a benefit? Always make it about a benefit for them. They're opting in, and then you don't have to feel weird about making follow-up calls because they've actually asked you to do it.
Yeah, efficient to get to see if they can bite. All right. Thank you.
Indeed. Well, that's awesome. So I'm excited that you guys started to dive into that. Here's what I would encourage of you next. You did 3. There's no reason why you can't do like 3 a day. Right? Start figuring out what that looks like. With all that positive response, find a way to dive into that database, which again, for many of you is still just your phone, as you move all of that data into command to start working it through your CRM. But again, I don't want you to wait. I don't want you to wait. Pretty much any time that we throw something at you, I encourage you, dive in first. Like, jump out of the plane and knit the parachute on the way down. You may have to knit really, really quickly, right? And sometimes knitting the parachute on the way down means calling your team leader, or calling me, or calling one of your ALC members for help, right? I reached out to somebody and the conversation turned quickly to business, and they said they want me to come and list their house. Now what do I do, right? Those are the good problems that I want you to have. And you won't find those issues if you're not promoting outreach into your database, right? I would rather you panic and say, you know what? So here's the script for if someone says, are you able to do that right this very minute? Even those of you who have no license yet, this is for every single person on the call. The answer is absolutely. Let me take down some additional information for you, and is it okay if I circle back to you within 24 hours with our next steps? Right? There's your script. So those of you who don't have a license, right? Make sure remember you can still make care calls. You can call and talk to people about what is coming up for you. And yet we have had issues where just in the last Ignite class, somebody made a care call, not licensed yet, and did like a preview. By the way, here's where I'm headed. Here's what I'm doing. I'm getting my license, and said, oh, that's awesome. My niece needs to sell her condo. Can you handle that for her? And he said exactly what I just gave to you. I absolutely can. Is it okay if I take down just a couple of pieces of information, like her name, her contact information, where she lives? And is it okay if I get back to you or her in the next 24 hours with a next step? He did that. The person he was talking to said yes, gave him the information. And immediately, I don't remember if I got the phone call or the team leader got the phone call, right? I was like, help, now what do I do? I'm not even licensed yet. But I'd rather you put yourselves in the position of having business come at you and be unprepared to handle it, and allow us to step in and assist you in handling it. If you're not licensed, that means we'll find somebody in the market center to handle the business on your behalf until you are licensed. If you've never done anything before, we'll just partner you with somebody, right? And you kind of do it together. 50% of your first transaction because you have zero experience and have no idea where to go, and you're going to do it partnered with somebody, is a whole lot better than 0% of whatever it is you're missing if you're not out there talking to people. Right? Is this making sense? Does it make some of you a little uncomfortable? That's okay. That's okay. Discomfort is a good thing. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to start getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's when business growth happens. That's when growth kind of period happens, but certainly business growth happens there, right? You have a support system. Don't forget you have a support system and use it. We're here to help you. It's not always exactly the way you want it to go, and that's okay, right? That's okay. So good job, everybody. I'm really elated and excited that so many of you dove in and made those first phone calls, because the reality is what you proved to yourselves is that. So take a look at the people who kind of volunteered and told us a little bit about what they did. They're happy, they're healthy, they were not hospitalized, no one reached through the phone and punched them in the nose, right? They're here to tell the story. And what's spectacular is they're not just here to say, yeah, I got through the exercise. What I heard was, I have people who are genuinely pleased to hear me. I have people who I spoke to who genuinely need to conduct business, perhaps not immediately, but in the very near future. And I have people I can help. There's a word for that in sales. It's called prospecting. That's what prospecting is. And you've just demonstrated that you can do it and do it well. So what I'd like for you to do is, if anyone was judging themselves about, I don't like to prospect, don't want to prospect, I don't know how to prospect, I'm not good at prospecting, you can now never ever think that again, because you just proved to yourself that you are good at it, you can do it, and you can create results from it. I'm always fascinated when I talk about prospecting into a database, how people have this vision of all of a sudden not having human conversations. I didn't say go telemarket, right? That's a different activity. Prospecting into your Met database is exactly what we just heard. Do you see the difference? Is the difference comforting in any way? I hope it is, because that was the point of the exercise, was to make the point that you don't have to like be weirded out by dialing into your database, because they're excited to hear from you. Remember, these are the people who know you, like you, and trust you. If you don't feel comfortable talking with them, who do you ever talk to? Right? Because those are the people who know you, like you, and trust you. So your homework from here on out is develop a system. I'm going to encourage it to be 3 a day. Any day that you work in real estate, you need to speak to at least 3 people. The materials in Ignite, if you go to the back of Power Session number 1 from Monday, it talks about the Ignite 10-4, right? And the 10-4 are, here are the 4 things that you should be doing every single day you choose to work. Number 1 is add 10 more people to your database. Number 2 is contact 10 people. Number 3 is follow up with some kind of a personal note to 10 people. And number 4 is preview property. Let's kind of break that down. What if instead of 10, you just decided to make it 3? And you got through that 3 from now till next Friday. If you work 5 days between now and next Friday, that's 15 people that you're going to make that same kind of outreach to. If you work 6 days, it's 18 people. If you work all 7 days, I would encourage you to give yourself a little time off, but hey, that's not for me to decide. If you work all 7 days, well, then it's 21 people. And next Friday, we'll have this conversation again to say, okay, did you hit your number? Did you hit 15 people? You've all got 15 people in your phones. I saw your numbers. You can't lie now because I asked you to put the numbers in there before I told you why I wanted to know it. Not my first rodeo. All right, so most of you had hundreds to thousands of people. Find 15, and let's just keep it going. Start to practice what it is you're going to do every day for as long as you're in real estate, because that's the job, is getting in front of more and more people. That's the job.
So what's the general rule of thumb? If we're making all these calls, in order to be successful, how many people should we be converting a week? Is it like 2, 5, 10? Like what should we be aiming for?
Yeah, so that's another great question, Ann. And so the answer is, it depends. It depends on conversion rates, right? So generally speaking, right, at a medium level of skill, it takes about 60 contacts for an appointment. These are numbers direct from Bold, right? These are national numbers. 60 contacts for an appointment. Now, some of you may have better conversion numbers than that. Some of you may have less, not quite as good conversion numbers. So over time, what you'll track is, okay, so I'm asking you to contact 15 people. The likelihood of finding an appointment in 15 people, save kind of just hitting it lucky, is low. Because for the most part, most of you are at that medium level of skill that says about 60 contacts. However, if we keep doing 15 a week, by the time we're done in 4 weeks with Ignite, that should be about 60, which means you should have at least found an appointment in those 4 weeks of contacts. If what you find is you contact 15 people, and every time you contact 15 people, you get another appointment, well, maybe you're far more skilled than than those numbers are giving you credit for, because you're either fishing in a pond that is ripe with opportunity, or you have better conversion skills. And so your numbers may prove out to be better than that. And so then you build a system. If you need 1 appointment a week and it only takes you 15 or 20 contacts, well then 20 contacts a week it is, bam, and you've got your appointment a week. Does that help?
Oh no, but I was saying, like, in order to be successful, how many people should you actually be converting? Not how long should it take you? Like, should we be trying to convert 2 people a week?
Well, so that also depends, right? On Wednesday we did the economic model, right? So your version of success crawls into that conversation. Is success for you a dollar amount? And if it is it $50,000? Is it $100,000? Is it $200,000? And then you go through the exercise we did on Wednesday in that economic model to determine what that dollar amount looks like in terms of appointments per week. So there is that correlation. But you have to first determine what successful actually looks like for you. And success today in year 1 or year 2 of your business may be different from what you want it to look like in year 4 or 5, right? So I would say first define success. Is success a certain number of closed units? Well, if that's the case, that economic model we ran through on Wednesday also breaks down how many units, right, it takes, how many appointments it takes to have a certain number of closed units. So you work that formula backwards without the money on the top, is my point. So closed units becomes a certain number of appointments. So it's all in the math, and it's in that economic model. Whether your success rate is determined by money or by closed units, you can use that economic model and boil it down to how many appointments new appointments you need to have every single week. Make sense? Cool. What else? Because now we got like 6 minutes left, so I'm not going to start something new. So what other questions do you have? And we'll start fresh with source of business on Monday, he says confidently.
I want to share something.
Yes.
Once I start making phone calls, it's just like energy as well. I mean, in my experience, is like, for instance, if I don't have anything to do, like I don't have any, I'm not working with a buyer, I don't have any listing, which is now the case. So I start making calls, and all of a sudden something pops up. It's because, I mean, many people know me by now and know that I'm in business. So that's something that we should keep in mind, that is about energy. It's not like I made 15 calls today and nothing comes up. Probably nothing today, but something next week.
Yeah. So what Yenny just said is absolutely worth waiting until 5:54 to hear, because she's 1,000% right, and it's something that you should definitely write down. Right? Margaret put in there the law of attraction. Right? Bogdan says the law of attraction. Boy, you guys are. This is like the advanced class. I think you should be teaching me. So the idea of what Yenny just put on the table is this: activity breeds success. Inactivity just breeds more inactivity, right? The way you move forward is to get busy, is to take action. And in a sales business, right? In a sales business, the action you take is putting yourself in front of more people. Sometimes that's calls into your database. Sometimes it's more open houses. Sometimes it's diving in and talking to more expired sellers than you thought you needed to do, right? Sometimes it's diving in and making sure that your Facebook ad campaign is robust, and following up with phone calls wherever possible on all those leads. It's building an agent-to-agent referral network and following up on that. All of those things are activities, right? Because when you're in action, the universe absolutely recognizes when you are in action, right? And rewards you for that. Here's the follow-up point I would make to what Yenny said, because it's so easy. I can remember lead generating back in my days of lead generating, and having that same thing happen. So it was, you got through your 15 or your 20 connections, you held yourself to a standard, you made the calls, you had the conversations, and that day, maybe that entire week, nobody raised their hand and said, I want to sell my house, or I want to buy, I want to create wealth by investing, or I know somebody. However, that next Tuesday in week 2, all of a sudden, you're driving into the office and your phone rings, not from somebody who you connected with last week, from someone who you haven't connected with. Frankly, they were about to be next on your list because 90 days has gone by, right? And so they were just about to pop up again to be the next to call. They call you and say, hey, guess what? I'm being relocated to Georgia. I need you to come over and list my $650,000 house on Saturday. Is that something that, what time can you be here? Here's what I want to remind you all of. That felt like it dropped out of the sky, right? You have to give credit to the activities that you took the weeks earlier for that falling out of the sky. Because that is, and this might sound a little ridiculous to those of you who don't believe in how the universe kind of gives you what you want, but you doing the work is you saying out loud, I am putting in the time, and from that time come rewards. Be careful not to exclude the stuff that falls out of the sky. You have to connect it back to the activities that you were taking, even if they're not directly related. Because the activities that you were doing set in motion that opportunity for it to fall out of the sky and into your lap. Plus, you talked to that person 3 months ago, you were about to talk to them again, And they're on your 36 Touch program, which we talked about on Wednesday. So they're also getting something from you twice a week via email. So you're creating that touch system. So you have to give credit to all the things that you're doing when stuff just falls out of the sky. My experience says to me that nothing really falls out of the sky. It's all connected to the work that I do because I'm in charge of my own success. So if I'm doing and doing and doing and doing and doing, I'm creating momentum that sometimes takes a little while to kick in and show me the reward. But the worst thing you can do is either stop and say, none of this is working, because now you're cutting off momentum. You're not allowing momentum to fulfill itself. And you're not connecting the stuff that you do get, the stuff that you do have an opportunity to work with, to the activities that you were working so hard on. Does that make sense to everybody? Go ahead, Jenny.
I just want to say something. Just worst case scenario, grab your husband, your kids, and talk about real estate if you don't find anybody else.
There you go. That's right. That is so right, right? Do what you have to do to keep the momentum going. Because I'll tell you what, that there's that whole idea of inertia, right? An object in motion keeps on moving. An object that stops, it's hard to get that going again. Yeah. So you've got to stay in motion, stay in activity. Activity solves everything. Get into action. What do you got for us, Donna? Take us out.
So I just wanted to say what Yeti's just said. I remember a time I was calling a friend. I said, can I practice my scripts with you? I really need someone to practice my scripts with. And she says, sure. So I go through my scripts, and then at the end, and she played along, it was great. At the end, she says, are we done practicing? And I said, yeah. And she said, great, because I do have a referral for you.
There you go. And it happens all the time. Anybody on this call who is a prospector, who with any consistency is talking to their database and staying top of mind with their database and having conversations, will tell you it is uncanny how many times you call and say, hey, happy Thanksgiving, just wanted to say thank you so much for being in my world, and you're having this care call, and someone says exactly what Donna says. Well, that's all well and fine, but do you mind putting your realtor hat on for a second? Because my niece needs to buy a condo, right? And she, oh, yeah, absolutely, that's awesome, right? Or you get the, I can't believe you called me to say hello. I was just thinking of you because my husband's going to be transferred, or I'm changing jobs, or what, right? The irony, it feels like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with you set it up to be that way. You just have to be consistent enough to reap the rewards of the momentum that you build. What a perfect way to end this conversation. Makes me all tingly, excited. Go ahead, Nicole, take us out. You're still on mute.
Unmuted. I'm hosting my first open house tomorrow. I've only been licensed for a month. Does anybody have tips?
So yeah, the fast answer is, are you doing it in person or online?
In person.
Great. So first and foremost, safety first, one couple through the house at a time, right? So you don't want hordes of people through the house, because that's the safety protocols need to happen first.
Okay.
The best tip that I can give you is always come from a level of contribution. Don't try to convert people at an open house. Instead, ask them what they need. Ask how you can help. Give them information, because they'll walk away from that open house with the idea that you were there to assist them, so that when you call them tomorrow night to say, hey, it was lovely to meet you, I just wondered if I could, if there's anything else I can help follow up with. Would it be helpful for you to be on an automated drip system so that you can get property information faster? When you call them Saturday into Sunday, they'll take your call because they felt like you were massively helpful, versus you were just a real estate agent trying to reel them in.
Okay.
Go ahead, Stephen.
The best thing I use is
give them your app as a takeaway.
Okay.
Get
On
their
my phone?
give them the app,
Okay.
and have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's important, right? That's important, and Stephen does that really well, right? Is to make sure that that he doesn't take himself too seriously or what we do too seriously, right? It's like we're not curing diseases here. We're just selling houses, right? It's what we do is important, and yet if you take it too seriously, you kind of I think freak people out and push them away. So Nicole, what I would say is utilize the personality that you have inherently to connect with people, offer them services, and by that I mean ask how you can help. Ask how you can help. It's about questions. It's not about you telling them stuff. It's about asking good questions, and then have great follow up.
Thank
Rick,
you.
Yes.
Rick, I would add, make sure you leave plenty of time to get your signs set up and get yourself all set up and all the lights on in the house. Because if you're rushing at the last minute, people do show up early.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. All right, guys. Thanks for helping each other. Thanks for being here. I hope this was helpful for you. We will start Monday, I promise, with Source of Business, and we will cruise through it so that you're all set to be building your lead generation program. Have a great weekend. Stay dry. I think it's going to be a little wet tonight into tomorrow. And I'll see you back here Monday. Remember, Monday we start at 5 o'clock, not 4. We're back to 5 o'clock on Monday for a start time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Go get
Have
some
a good
food.
luck at the open house. Thanks.
Thank you.